Okay, so like the game of the Korean person right now, it's like the first game over and like the frontman right now, like basically watching like the game stage of like the first game from up close. Like I'm wondering this would be like the first time that I'm remembering like the frontman would have totally uh, watched like a Squid Game stage from up close after that Squid Game was over. It's definitely my favorite, and that's the thing my favorite that like the same reason for like the frontman doing so would be solely because of like the that of like the old man like I mean, definitely my friend. He might have actually been like the childhood friend of like the front man's father. Like the front man would be the son of like the person who would be like the boss that like running like the entire business to game. And that boss would have probably been like the childhood friend of like the old man. The next who might have never been able to like win against like the old man during while they would have played the childhood game and even all the way to back when they were young and might have played like the whole tug of war and everything like and not see that like tug of war, friendly tug of war and all that. Like, but like each and every single time, like I'm looking to be always that friend of like the old man. So we might have kept dosing to like the old man, no matter what which games he would play. So like that way, like he might have that extreme grudge towards like the old man might have been formed within him as he grew up. This might have only deepened as he grew up. Definitely, my brother, that extreme dread and like that extreme feeling of jealousy and resulting desire to that get revenge and make like the old man and the son suffer like and since like definitely back when like Sangyeon might have been like playing like the sales game like was always like back then like Sangwoo might have been always been in like Sangyeon's team just definitely when and it might have been always like back then it might have been always Sang Gion as well as like Sangwook's team against which like always like the billionaire is like running its against his son would have always lost exactly like him. Definitely when it was very rich. Okay, like that way that might be how he like and not only like the old man with like dementia and Sangyeon I don't might have been targeted and like their jobs possibly having been destroyed and by that salesperson that will be like around like Squid. But also Sangwoo as well might have definitely been lured into like the Squid only due to like Sangwoo back then during childhood might have been in like the team of always been like team of like, the winning team of like a Sangyo. So definitely remember the rainbow itself. And I'm still thinking of my personal impression that like the fourth Squid Game being like the exact mark with Squid Game. The big precisely like still thinking of my personal impression. It might have been precisely like the boss was like running like the Squid Game and desperately being like so extremely frustrated seeing like the old man like winning like the first, second and third Squid Game where like each time like the old man will be stepping into like the Squid Game like the boss running like Squid Game might have being totally waiting to see like the old man lose and try to suffering them like but like on the other hand, like the old man winning like each and every single one of like the first, second and third Squid Game like I'm doing that made it only frustrated like the box that would be running like this game as well as with from like the frontman. So like same that time was been like it might have been like either the frontman's idea or like it might have been like the idea of the box would be running like this game. It might have been either one of their ideas to like basically take advantage of like the total number of Squid candidates being an odd number with like the depth of like the top Squid candidates. So that could set up this like for Squid Game as this exact mark game so that like that way definitely to ensure like the old man definitely tries the seasons like the box that we are that like the student image of either expected like the old man to die like absolutely no one picking it as like a team member as like a pair for like the box begin. But like even after like Sanjay picking like the old man like even at that point like since like the positive game being in such nature of like the master game where the players are supposed to go against each other. That might have been that first backup strategy by like either the boss or like the strongman to ensure that the old man dies in like the first game. It's definitely my opinion. And this would be like the sole reason because like the old man with like dementia might have been such a long target for like the person that is running the game as well as like the front man will be like the precise reason for like right now like the front man right now watching as like the first game is over and like as like the old man is like going to his side like basically right now like the front man right now like basically watching showing up and watching like the game stage of like the first game uh, up close will be precisely solely due to the suggestion, especially my constraint. Because like the Fox region was being like extremely important for uh, way more important than like the previous regions for both the men as well as that is about that with the round experience. It's definitely my opinion. Okay, so like definitely my question right now as for like the front right now checking the watch and time almost being like 11 o'clock. Like I'm suspecting like it will be most likely right now like the time would be most likely 11 p.m. It's definitely my opinion. And 11 p.m. would be most likely when like the VIPs will be showing up. It's definitely my opinion. So like I'm remembering that it's like the VIPs that totally not showing up for like the fourth Marble Squid Game. That just that is right now just over. Like I'm just like it will be especially because of like my opinion is that like the VIPs might be only interested in the last two Squid Games. Among like the total Squid Games, like it will be only in like the final two. The fifth as well as the Squid Game alone, like the VIPs will be showing up to like watch it live. It's definitely not a impression. So like I'm assuming like the fifth as well as like the sixth game will be like totally extremely different to like the first four games is definitely never connected. Now so something like the fifth as well as like the sixth game will be like not only the so like my first three impressions that like when compared to like the first four Squid Games, like I'm thinking like the fifth as well as like the sixth Squid Game would be like on a totally different level of like superior level of difficulty and danger as well. And compared to like the first four Squid Games, it's definitely my difference. And this might be like the precise and so reason for like the VIPs only interested in like the VIPs are right now only just about to show up. Even after like the Portugal game right now is just over. It's definitely my intention. They will be only interested in like the fifth as well as like the sixth game in like watching live like the fifth as well as like the sixth game alone. For this specific reason will be like the possibility is definitely my favorite impression. So like my three impressions were like the boss is like running like the studio game as well as like the front man. Like they might have totally expected like they might have perfectly endured like the old man with dementia into like the Squid Games and like the still like my impression that like the old man dementia would be like the childhood friend of like the boss is like running the studio and like the front man would be like his son. So like I'm also like definitely then both like would be having that absolute envy and grudge and desperate desire to like get revenge on like the old man is definitely my top version. So like I'm assuming like with like the old man's like they might not only be initially expecting for like the old man to not to fail and like in like the very first red light green light situation. But like and they might have been like frustrated with like the old man doing like the first game and then the second and then the third so like I'm particularly like it might have been extremely important for like the boss who will be like running away to game as well as the young man to like ensure that the old man doesn't make it all the way to like the first to game and to see like the VIPs like the VIPs representation will be like big shot from in like the world of like the Squid Game web series and like it will be like the VIPs would be like big shot from all over like the world like web series of the Squid Games definitely one of the same so for them to be like impressed by the performance of like the old man in like the as well as or in like the first or in like the Squid Game and like for them to like cheer on like the old man like think that would be like the last thing that the person who will be like running like the Squid Game as well as like the old man would be wanting because like they would have their extreme jealousy and extreme sense of grudge and towards like the government that like they might have made it their highest priority to like ensure that the old man gets eliminated before reaching like the fifth Squid Game. And this might be like the type of reason for like the fourth Squid Game being like the way it is. Just to like ensure it might have been just to like the fourth game being like the way it is might have been just like the foreign man as well as like his father who's like running the Squid Game trying to like ensure that like the old man uh, doesn't make it to like the Pacific game and gets the attention of like the EA plus and all that. It's definitely my personal impression. So like that way like the fourth game might have been precisely targeted specifically to like get rid of like the old man with dementia. It's definitely my personal impression. Also definitely my personal impression right now with like time being almost 11. So definitely it's 11 p.m. and like the VIP is like about to soon show up and basically like the intro still missing. Like I'm also like this like specifically about the mention that like this introduction the intro like Jun-ho still not getting caught. Like I'm looking like it eventually spiraling into like Jun-ho eventually being able to like stealthily being able to like maybe it will be through like the maybe like I'm looking like Jun-ho like entering into like that air ventilation network on like the ceiling and eventually ending up precisely accidentally finding the precise room where like once like the VIPs will be showing up and once like the VIPs will be like seated and watching like the Squid Game live. Like maybe it will be at that point that I'm going to bring maybe Jumbo might like see the VIPs and straight away would be like a recognizing who the VIPs are. It's also like minimum so like at that point that the VIP especially and won't be wearing any mask even after like entering like the city because definitely never because like the VIPs like they would be having like absolutely nothing to fear at all. Because like they would be so extremely powerful and influential. It's definitely my personal reaction. So like the VIPs will be showing up without any mask. It's definitely not observable. So I'm considering like the from like the air ventilation on like the ceiling and considering the scenario to be like a jump for shockingly recognizing like the VIPs and Junko feeling extremely enraged and like after some like Junko deciding to like take the life of like the VIPs that live at in So like I'm considering like Junko that way uh, either that for like example like maybe trying to catch up and arrest like the VIPs maybe it's like and maybe like example do planning on basically things like example this way the way be able to like recognize that they are VIPs so like I'm maybe like example also planning on like basically arresting them and maybe like taking the VIPs hostage on that way or like example to like escape from like this game building and to put an end to like the entire speaking maybe Janko even attempting to do that as well. So like a possibility that I'm looking for. But like regardless, the list is in the presentation as for like Janko that like I'm like that eventually happen precisely while Janko will be like precisely trying to like arrest or like take the life of like the VIPs. At that point, I'm definitely thinking like the front man most likely showing up from behind and Janko won't be aware of it and to be most likely the front man that will be taking the life of Janko at that point is like the scenario that I'm looking for. And that was super thing like odds to happen perfectly well. Like the VIPs would be watching like the Squid Game like definitely one of the language. So even after like Jungho under the thing like getting taken out by like the frontman and that way like all of those VIPs being safe at that point. But like even then like I'm like the VIPs still like still even with that incident like the VIPs still deciding not to leave but like the VIPs still staying deciding to like stay and watch like the rest of like the game as well as like the VIPs watching like the game as well. It's like the eventual scenario that I'm just bringing up. And I'm still sitting my personal impression for like Sangyeon, like the product and Sangyeon himself actually eventually ending up being like not only like the winner of like the two game, but like also for like the remaining young candidates who would be like participating in like the sixth game and who even like the ones who would be like completing like the sixth game, yet like I'm between like all of them dying due to even after completing like, the sixth game. And I'm going the reason would be that like the the rules would be there might be it might be like the games will be set up in such a way that like there can only be a single winner in like the Squid Game. So each year, so like I'm different because of all this is the reason I'm doing like um, Sangyeon was actually ending up finishing like the sixth game first, and then was Sangwoo as well finishing like the sixth game, but like up Sangyeon. So like solely due to that reason, like Sangwoo as well definitely dying as like the scenario that I was different. While in the case of Sabian definitely think like escaping, somehow managing to like escape either during that point or like maybe even before that, like I was saying, like Sabian totally like before like the sixth game either that's like the other person that I'm doing. Sabian totally definitely would be escaping through like their ventilation. And in like their ventilation and also like Sabian totally running into that precise woman who had initially had like a crush on like DXO who was like taken away during like this during like the pair selection like the positive game. That as well happening. And like Xavier totally running into her precisely in that air ventilation area, especially when the precisely because of like them both precisely knowing having entered and like knowing like the air ventilation area and those like uh, not them both, but like since like Savior have entered into like their ventilation area before, and since like that other woman knows of like the pathway through like the air ventilation being accessible, like I'm also friend like solely due to this reason, I'm also friend like them both definitely I'm also friend surviving, meeting up in that air ventilation area, and like them both eventually will be successfully escaping out of like the Squid Game building, just like the eventual scenario that ended. And while Sangyo will definitely ending up being like the only winner of like the Squid Game of like the of 2020, like the scenario that I'm going. And that way like all of and at that point I was going the scenario to be like all of like the VIPs at that point like thoroughly being impressed with like Sangyeon's like performances, like the scenario that I was in. Because like not only like the as well as like the game that would be on like an extremely different level of like superior level of like difficulty as well as danger like I'm still even in those as well as it's the game I'm definitely cutting like Sangyeon totally at the very last second that putting out some sort of like an out of the box strategy which should be enabling Sangyeon to like not only win like the Squid Game but also like like the Squid Game for Sangyeon to be able to like end up competing with the Squid Game. So definitely when they're doing option and that would be like totally thoroughly interesting like all those VIPs like the scenarios that I'm delivering. So the VIPs will be like only cheering on Sangyeon and basically that they will be thoroughly impressed with like Sangyeon. They're like Sangyeon and they're like not being aware of all this happening because like the VIPs will be in like an anticipation but from where they will be watching like the script as well as the game live with like the scenario that I'm delivering. So like I'm delivering yeah, like I was like the boss, like the person who will be like running like the Squid Game as well as like the front man will be extremely frustrated and irritated with like Sangyeon's like achievements. So definitely my personal impression, especially with solely due to like Sangyeon being like the son of like the old man dementia, as well as like Sangyeon in like his childhood as well, would have totally might have played like the childhood Squid Game with like the front man himself and basically in that childhood games, like it might have been always like a command that might have always lost to like fun games team. It's definitely not the measure. So like the command will be also having like that after experience jealousy and crush towards like Sangyeon. So like I'm also going to Sangyeon getting all that praise. Even though Sangyeon won't be like aware of what's happening, like still like from that hidden location within like studio building where all the VIPs will be and where like the frontman as well will be like the frontman as well as like the boss and our participants is the box most likely showing up along with like the VIPs like the box as well. So the box who's like running this game as well would be participants to be seated along with like the VIPs as like the VIPs will be watching like the book as well as like this good game live is definitely one of the trends. Like there will be participant like there to be like the frontman as well as like his father like the box who's like running like this good game along with all the other VIPs. So like seeing them, all these VIPs like right beside them, like cheering on Sangyeon and like totally being impressed with like Sangyeon's performance and basically like praising Sangyeon's performance and all that. Like that to totally that even increase more of that extreme grudge and jealousy and create a lot of frustration within like the versus running it game as well as like the front man. It's definitely not the transition. That like they would be like even more extremely like determined that at that point that basically that in like the 2021 Squid Game, like definitely they're them being determined that like even if a Sangyeon will be winning like the 2020 Squid Game, that's like my personal ambition right now. And making all that money even then, like the boss as well as like the frontman, like determined to like ensure that as soon as possible, like to steal away, to stealthily steal away all that money from like Sangyeon, and so the and then to like totally pile up the pressure onto like Sangyeon, and that way to like basically lure and push Sangyeon into like eventually entering into like the 2021 Squid Game, where like I'm basically like the so that like at that point like the I'm also bringing like the boss was like running the studio as let's the from my totally steadily like doing all that is like the scenario that I'm doing and then being absolutely determined that like even though Sangyeon had survived like would be surviving like the 2020 game and as like the winner and being like the winner like still like then setting up like the 2021st Squid games in such manner to like really ensure that like Sangyeon doesn't survive. Specifically targeting then setting up like the entirety of like the 2021st Squid Game in such a manner so that like they will be like setting up the game precisely and solely targeting Sangyeon. I know it's like the scenario that I'm looking at to ensure that Sangyeon dies and doesn't survive in like the 2021st game. Like the scenario that I'm looking at. And I'm looking like it would be during like the 2021st game that I'm looking like in between. Maybe like I'm looking like Sangyeon only like quitting from like the Squid Games midway, escaping from like the Squid Games midway, like Sangyeon only figuring out a lot of things. And definitely I'm positioning like sitting the my position that it would be like in like the 2020 first Squid Game that I'm positioning like Jun-ho's brother like Info would be like once again re-entering along with like Sangyeon is like the also eventual scenario that I'm different. And I'm going to like it will be like the 2021st game that I'm going to Sangyeon will be most likely uncovering the truth about like the villain with like running like this good game and everything. It's like the scenario that I'm doing. And then being brought down and brought to justice, like all that like I'm going to like the Squid Games finally ending and fully being stopped and like the people running the Squid Game being arrested or brought to justice or like dying, like I'm all this to happen most likely during like the 2021st Squid Game. The Squid Games that will be take place in like the year 2023 because it's definitely like the scenario that I'm going to bring another to attention. So like the Korean mentioned right now as for like the woman who basically wasn't able to like make a pair before like the first Squid Game. Like basically her still being alive and present in like right now. After like the first Squid Game right now, her still being alive and present in like the Squid Game candidates room. Like I'm from like it will be precisely and so unfortunately there will be two reasons for her still being alive and her life not being taken by the Squid Game of Blood. Like and everything like there will be two reasons and there's like one main reason. Like the main reason will be due to like my particular impression that I'm sitting on to that like basically the fourth Squid Game like the way the nature of it the fourth Squid Game like basically it might have definitely the fourth Squid Game definitely might have been like a target for specifically the old man with dementia, like to ensure that he doesn't make it to like the fifth Squid Game and like the VIPs doesn't get to see him or hear him on that to ensure that doesn't happen. Especially due to that, like the boss was like running like this game as well as the front man already having that extreme grudge and jealousy towards like as well as Sangyeon as well as Sangu. But like I'm thinking like it would be like the since like the Omen Domisha might have been like the childhood friend of like the boss, like the very person who's like running like the entire defense game. Like I'm thinking that might be like the maximum towards like the old man with dementia. That's definitely my very much so to ensure that he doesn't make it to like the Squid Game might have been like the biggest priority for like the bosses like running the Squid Game and to ensure that like the pair selection concept might have been present for like the first three games. It's definitely might have been good for like the first three games. It's definitely one of the selection. So like I'm wondering like the boss is like running the game as well as the front man might have totally expected like for like the old man to be like the first person who wouldn't get taken in as like a pair to form a pair team. Definitely one of the dream. That might have been what they might have totally expected. Might have been like Sangyong's question. Then even while like the frontman as well as the bosses like running the game, they might have only observed like all the Squid Game candidates like re-entering in after entering into the Squid Game building and they might have even by now triggered like the friendship between like Sangyeon as well as like the woman with the mission. Yet like they might have never expected like for Sangyeon to still form a player but like the old man for like the boss game definitely were moved into. So like the boss as well as like the front man might have been totally expecting for like especially for like the old man to be like that specific single Squid Game candidate, the odd number of like Squid Game candidates like that old man alone being like the only speaking candidate that doesn't get chosen to be a pair before like the first skill game might have been what precisely lack of like bosses like running the skill game might have totally expected. It's definitely my boss as well as the front my method totally expected. Definitely my boss. So like if that was like the scenario, then my boss impression is that like the old man might have straight away might have been taken the life of. So definitely my boss impression. Yeah, like my documentary impression that like things like the box again might have been like a CDM that might have been this only targeting like the life of like the old man with like dementia and since like the instead of like the old man it was like that woman that instead that was like the only person who wasn't able to like form a fair. Like this would be like the main reason for like her like since like she had fallen for like the trap that for like the old man might have been like scenario that might have happened. Like this is only due to this would be like the main reason for like her even being alive even after like the fourth studio is over. Her the fact that her right now is like alive even without playing like the fourth studio would be like solely due to like the main reason would be this exactly stepney organization and like the sub reason would be exactly due to like her like definitely she would have been totally being observed by like the man as well as like the bosses like running his again. So like I'm assuming like since like that woman has like her character to like kick fights with like everyone and anyone like and the she would be like considered and considered as like his leave as like among like the student candidates like as like the that one among like those student candidates that will be able to like seriously entertain like the VIPs once they will be like, showing up to like see like the student live like at that point like that was like the boss as well as like the man will be only seeing her that candidate of like that woman like they will be seeing that woman as like the one of like the best entertainers in that could like only entertain like the VIP. That would totally make like the good game watching like an extremely entertaining of like an experience for like the VIPs would be along the lines that like in which like the box as well as the box is running a studio as well. The frontman would be seeing that woman. It's also a different reason. So like this would be like these two reasons would be like the reason for like the woman who wasn't able to like make a pair in like the before like the box games still even without playing like the box games still being alive and present in like the Squid candidate mode right now. Definitely my personal impression. So like definitely right now I'm considering like all the remaining Squid candidates totally straight away getting extremely angry. I'm considering like it wouldn't just be like dates alone that would be getting that would be like the seeing up. But like I'm considering like all the remaining Squid Game candidates, like once they would all be returning back to like the Squid Game room, and basically they would all be like seeing up, like being able to like survive even without playing like the Squid Game, while like among the Squid Game candidates, like their friends might have only people they might have only bonded with might have only died in like the first Squid. So like again for like to like basically survive without even playing like the first weekend like that and considering like triggering and angering a lot like a good number of like the student candidates right now that they are coming back to like the student room is like the definite scenario that I'm doing and then totally and right themselves I'm also like most likely the studio workers as well most likely showing up. So like I'm like them totally getting angry and like them totally asking like the studio workers and them totally questioning like the studio workers is like the definite scenario that I'm doing. As for like them having told them that basically they have ensured to like make the studio fair as fair as to ensure that to make the studios fair and equal opportunities given to like each of the Squid Game candidates. So like I'm also bringing like all of like the Squid Game candidates at that point like calling them out on like the unfair way of like basically like of like letting that woman that basically move to like the first Squid Games without playing like the first game like that or questioning like the Squid Game of the or even like the front man of the Lambo maybe showing up and then more questioning him as well as like the scenario that I was looking. And at that point I'm definitely think the front man totally still trying to convince them saying that like basically the games are still fair that basically um, and I was like the frontman was actually telling them, or like the school game leader of the school game worker, like basically leader among the school game worker telling like all the school game candidates that like in the box school game, like not getting selected as well is part of like the box school game to survive in the box school game. This would be like the exact excuse of a reason that I'm either the frontman or like the one of like the leader of like among the school game workers like telling all the remaining school game candidates that for the excuse of like a reason for like the woman basically being able to like move on to like the school game without playing like the first game is like given the scenario that I'm about to talk about again also remember. And then my personal impressions were like in like the school game I'm just like right before like the Squid Game even begins, like I was looking like a similar situation like the fourth Squid Game where like I was looking like the first Squid Game as well, being like a team-based play Squid Game. It's like the scenario that I'm looking for. So but like I'm like in like the game about like unlike in like the fourth game it won't be like choosing a pair but like as like a team but like I'm like it maybe it being like a 4 member or like a 6 member team. So like 6 member multiple teams or like 4 member multiple team selection would be like how is how I'm preferring like the fifth game to be. And I was preferring like the fifth game would be set up in such a realistic manner that I'm preferring like in like the physical game as well, exactly like how like that woman was able to like form a team in like form a pair in like before in the first game. But different like particular like the team selection will be set up for like the first game in such a manner that basically to ensure that like there will definitely be game candidates that will be like that won't be able to like form a team even after all the other teams will be formed among the game candidates. Like the first game will be set up in such a manner to totally trick like the first 15 candidates is like the scenario that I'm looking. So like I'm looking definitely like straight away like once like the it's game I'm looking eventually would be like revealed and like the order to like form teams would be like told to like the game candidates at that point if I'm looking like the game candidates all of them actively counting their numbers and like the number of like number of members for like the team to check and see if like basically anyone could like totally opt out of like playing like this game without forming a team. So like that is like the scenario that I'm considering, and that way I'm considering like maybe I'm considering like that very same woman I'm considering like who basically could form a pair and still survive like the post game without playing like the top game. Like I'm considering like once again, like in like the first game, I was preparing like for like a similar situation to happen, and thereafter I was preparing like straight away saying that I'm not that she's not going to form anything. It's like the scenario that I'm preparing, and then I'm preparing like there being like a fight among the two game candidates as to like who as for like who gets to like be among like the ones who are not going to form a team and gets like the luxury of like basically move passing like the winning like the fifth Squid Game without playing like the fifth Squid Game. So like so number people like such a whole fight happening among like the Squid Game candidates to basically not play like the Squid Game. So like I'm considering like yeah like I'm considering like in the case of Sangyeon I'm considering like Sangyeon totally like straight away picking a team and deciding to like play like the Squid Game. And Sangwoo as well I'm considering doing the same thing and maybe I'm considering the fifth Squid Game. Uh, Maybe Sangwoo totally find someone else. Like definitely, I'm looking like Sangwoo most likely not being in like Sangwoo's team as what I'm just again it's like even the scenario that I'm looking. So like Sangwoo finding his own team, making his own team, and all that is like the scenario that I'm looking. But like I'm looking like during the scenario to be like I'm looking to positive. Either the woman who basically definitely I'm looking like the woman who basically could form a pair in like the super in like the for like the fourth game and get like one like the fourth game without playing like the fourth game. Like some example for like that may not being able to like stay out of like being in a team with like for like the fourth games like the scenario that I'm referring. So like because like for the remaining Indian candidates won't be allowed to like basically get that luxury for like a second time, but like without forming a team for her to like not play like the first game and still uh, win that game. Like so that I'm looking like the remaining Indian candidates totally like shouting at her and basically not allowing her to like not be part of the team. So like that way I'm looking like her even though initially I was feeling like that woman will probably trying to like fight back and like with like her decision to like not be to basically once again ban that strategy of like not being part of like any team and to like basically pass like the successful game without playing games. Still I'm like the remaining candidates not allowing her to like stay out of like forming a team. It's like the scenario that I'm looking. So like that way like I'm looking at her once again hitting up in like San Dion team is like the scenario that I'm looking for. And I'm going to bring like there being like among like Squid Game candidates there before like the Squid Game there being like two or three Squid Game candidates that would be like that would be finally like through like the through even fighting and through maybe even threatening like them taking that position of like not being part of any team is like the scenario that I'm looking at. So for them, like I'm positing like they are for folks totally backfiring at that point because like I'm just going like my positive impression is that like if like the fifth game would be like a four-member team good game, then I'm positing like there being like obviously multiple four-member teams and like these good game candidates would be opting out of like forming any team like them. I'm positing like it ends up being like three good game members like not. Just finally fighting their way into like uh, coming to like achieving the decision of like not being part of anything like them as well like basically for the fifth game like them have being forced to like play like the fifth game with just three members like the three members who would have like totally stayed away from all teams like being able to being forced to like play like the fifth game with like just three members and that way like them getting that extreme disadvantage of like a situation and their strategy backfiring. So like at that point I was thinking like the student of course like the leader of the studio of like telling them that basically that was like the nature of like the fourth game that allowed that woman to like basically win like the first game without playing with the first game. But like the nature of like the first game is different. Those who opt out of like forming a team has to like still play like the first game with that disadvantage of like not having like four members but like three members. Like that is like the kind of like a scenario that I'm working on recording and my partner either that or like each of like them who would be like opting out of forming a team having to like play the first game individually without even being able to form a team like them having to like play and win like the game individually and that it could be either one of these two possibilities. These possibilities would like the win the scenario that I'm considering and that way like those exact skill game and at that point I'm also bring like that woman who might have been who I'm also bring like clinically like the skill game would be like forced to like be part of like Sangyong's team by all the other Squid Game candidates who would be fighting to like opt out of being in like a team. Like I'm possible like those three uh, Squid Game candidates who won't be forming a team and getting that strategy backfiring and like will be having to like play like the uh, Squid Game at a disadvantage like them totally dying in like losing and dying in like the Squid Game is like the scenario that I'm looking at. And I'm looking like once like Squid Game worker would be even revealing that they would have to like play the Squid Game. Those candidates who opted out of forming a team having to like play like the Squid Game as individuals or like as like the three member team. Like once that would be revealed under the like that woman totally at that point like laughing at them and mocking them and making fun of them. This is also like the eventual scenario that I'm looking at. Okay, so like basically I'm production right now as for like the front man's like phone ringing and basically right now like the front man like right before picking like the call like the front man breathing and pausing for like a moment and they're picking up like the receiver like I'm precisely because of like the front man would might not only use like a strategy to like always ensure that at the time no one else has touched like the front man's phone and that strategy would be like the receiver and like how like the receiver would be kept in like the old kind of like a telephone of like the front man which definitely my definition. So like I'm looking like right now that's like the front man fast to pick up the phone like I'm looking like the receiver might have been kept in like the opposite directions to which like the frontman might have always like after picking up and falling like the frontman might have always like kept the receiver back in that specific direction and right now like the frontman watching it precisely because of him noticing like the receiver in like the opposite direction like to like basically how it was kept, always kept, how he the opposite direction, like how the frontman always kept like the receiver on the phone after like the after each and every single call. Definitely remember the premise. So like right now, like the frontman might not only realize just by seeing like the position of like the opposite position of like the receiver in which it was kept on to like the telephone itself, like I'm just putting like in the phone front. That might be like the reason for like frontman pausing like the frontman in stop at like the realization that like the intruder has already picked up frontman calls. It's definitely my sensory impression. So like and as for like whom would be like the small to like the frontman right now would be and possibly like it would definitely be from like the boss of like the frontman to just to tell like the frontman that like the VIPs have arrived, and to like also question like the frontman as of like basically maybe like I'm assuming like the frontman might have been afraid of like the boss finding out about like the intruder, that like maybe I'm assuming the frontman might have not told like the intruder about like might have not told like the boss about like there being an intruder in like the studio building side of that, or like the like the manager told the boss about like the intro of being present in like of like a mysterious intro of being present in like the stadium building. So like that's the case, then the boss right now will be calling the front man to not only inform the front man that like the VIPs have arrived, but also to like straight away question like the front man to find out if like the front man had successfully captured like the infiltrator is the element of information. So like right now, considering like the if like the pop right now ask like the front man that question, then I'm considering like the front man would definitely lie to like the boss. Like I'm going to use the front man will get always scared of like the boss, that I'm going to use the front man lying to the boss and telling the boss that he has only captured like the infiltrator. Instead of leaving the front, that way the front man lying to the boss with like the hopes that like the front man could get like a bunch of like game workers to like secretly uh, search all around like the Squid Game building, so that like by the time like the boss would want to, if like the boss even want to see the infiltrator like the front man, by then would be possibly hopefully would be able to like capture the infiltrator. After that, or like the front man maybe lying and telling the boss that he has already captured and gotten rid of like the infiltrator. That such a lie the front man telling like the boss. It's like these are like the multiple possible scenarios in which like like the front man will be answering to the boss right now. It's definitely my birthday. Yes, so like the cleaner the million person right now has like the third person who called like the front man. That the front man right now calls sir. Like that person would be that most likely the person running like the Squid Game. It's definitely my person right now. Running like the billionaire that we are running like the Squid Game. And like the child in front of like the man would be that person that like the front man right now addressed to through his like phone call as like sir. It's definitely my friend. And right now, with like the frontman telling that person, that boss, that basically the host is currently basically waiting for like the VIPs to arrive. Like the host and the friend will be like the frontman himself. This might be like my personal impression that the frontman himself would be like what who like the frontman would be addressing to as like the host is definitely my personal impression. So like it could be like the frontman that will definitely be and the person will be like receiving like the VIPs as like guests and everything. So it's definitely my personal impression. Also, definitely my personal impression right now with like the boss, it is called like not asking like the frontman anything about the thing program would be precisely because of like the frontman being so extremely scared of like the of his boss, like the person so the dinner running like even finding out about like they are being like an intruder, uh, especially with like the timing as well being like the VIPs like showing up like basically. So Salman right now is only extremely scared for his life of like the of taking his life. It's definitely my opinion on that. Like the frontman might have get that information about like the intro from like about the make my impression. So like the frontman would be like totally extremely scared right now, and frontman right now would become possible to be like really right now after like after like the call, like right now, if I'm considering like the front to be totally to get totally desperate to find like the intruder before like the VIPs arrive. So definitely my impression. So like the last thing front man would be wanting would be like either the VIPs or like the boss to like basically to even find out that there is like an intruder. That would be the like last thing the front man will be wanting to like happen, because like the front man would be like well known to be aware that at that point like the frontman would be that dying by the hand of the black boss. And I'm also like definitely like the person that like the frontman the boss that's like calling that calling always calling like the frontman, and basically the person the frontman like understood as well in this call, like basically that boss would definitely, I'm still thinking about that boss would definitely be the frontman own father. It's definitely my personal impression. Like the plane of brain resting right now is like the front end right now. It's called like placing the receiver back onto the telephone in like the perfectly in like the opposite direction, like and that too in like a slow and careful manner. Like it will potentially like the front man that opposite direction which like the receiver is right now placed will be like the exact direction in which like the frontman would be like always like placing his like receiver each and every single time after his like call with the ball. So definitely my boundary impression. So this would be definitely the frontman's way of like ensuring that absolutely no one else is like using like the frontman for telephones. Definitely my boundary impression. So like right now, with the frontman like slowly placing back the receiver in like the opposite direction right now, like definitely like the frontman this time would have totally precisely even notice like carefully like totally try to like picture into like the frontman's mind like to totally fix it into his mind as to like even like the exact shape in which like the wire of like the receiver, the shape in which like the wires of like the receiver is even in while like the front man has placed back the receiver so that like the front man would be totally expecting like the possibility that basically even if like the intruder once again like uses like the phone and basically the next time the intruder uses like the phone without like the front man's next time like the intruder uses like the phone and if actually the intruder plays back like the phone in the precise exact opposite direction of like the frontman places always places will be always placing his like receiver back. That's still like for like the frontman to like figure it out like the that the green robot has used like the phone precisely through like the exact shape of like the wires of like the circular wires of like the receiver. But like right now, frontman would have only carefully the frontman right now would have carefully, while placing back the receiver left in the opposite direction, like the frontman right now would have carefully observed like the exact position of like the wires leading to like the receiver as well. The filler wires leading to leading to like the receiver as well. It's definitely my personal impression. Yes, so like the cleaner of the impression right now as for like the frontman right now. I think like basically locking like the outer door of this like the rope and basically like the frontman right now pulling out his like weapon like and like like from trying to find the intro of like definitely my personal impression is that like right now what like Jun-ho's strategy and positioning will be precisely to like stealthy fight and take down like the front man. It would be like precisely Jun-ho's strategy precisely because like Jun-ho might have precisely noticed like there being like Jun-ho after like infiltrating into like the front man's room like Jun-ho might have only noticed like there being like absolutely no CCTV cameras at all in like the front man's room. It's definitely one of the premises. So like Janko might have quickly figured out the strategy and to be prepared to like take down like the front man so that like that way doing just that like Janko would be if like Janko brings down like the front man then like Janko would be on wearing like the front man's costume like Janko would be able to like control like the entirety of like the studio building. So that's because of like by now Janko most likely definitely knowing that like the front man is like the highest authority. Definitely. So like Jumbo would be like him being able to like infiltrate into like the finance room, like Jumbo would be like totally change this that as like his like ultimate opportunity to basically control that way if he disguises as like the front man then he will be able to like control like the entirety of like the Squid Game building. Like this would be along the lines like Jumbo would be like would have totally strategized and would be right now attending and this would be like the reason for like my personal impression right now definitely that like Jumbo definitely would have not left like the room of like the front man's gun or would be like precisely hiding somewhere in like the front man's room with like that precise intent to like take down like the front man and disguise as like the front man. It's definitely my personal impression. And definitely my personal impression right now is definitely for that attempt of like Janko, that attempt and strategical plan of like Janko to definitely be temporarily a success for like the time being. Just like the scenario that I'm observing. Definitely I'm observing like Janko right now. Uh, stealthy like basically outsmarting like the front man basically like or and defeating like the front man and like the scenario that I'm observing. In that way, like Junho pulling out the mask of like the front man and basically Junho then interrogating like the front man and basically then like Junho like basically tying up like the front man and like most likely clasping like the front man and that way the front man not being able to like let like the other game workers like everybody else in like game letting know at the situation and that way like like Junho then like tying up the front man and locking him up in like the room of the front man. And then like Janko wearing like the disguise of like the frontman, and Jung-ho showing up to as like the host towards like once like the VIPs would be showing up. It's like the eventual scenario that I'm looking for the current right now in the direction. Yes, like I'm looking in the strategy of Jung-ho to like eventually totally backfire, and I'm definitely predicting that Jung-ho would be eventually ending up dying, and definitely like after integrating into like the Squid Game building, like I'm looking like definitely Jung-ho won't be like leaving like the Squid Game building, and I was like given the scenario that I'm looking for the current and also the and my was very impressive that like the precise factor that I'm also bringing to be like eventually ending up with like Janfo's plan, which I'm also according to my consideration that the plan that I'm also bringing for Janfo would be to like disguise himself as like the frontman. But like I'm also still that plan eventually totally resulting in like totally backfiring, even though Janho would be like succeeding in like disguising himself as frontman still. I'm also like once like the VIPs will be showing up at that point, I'm also bringing the boss as well uh, to show up like the boss in front of the him as well to show up. And since according to my personal champions on the boss was running like this good game to be like the father of like frontman. I'm also like he would be totally like without much creative itself, like he would be able to like even with like the disguise of like the frontman, like he would be able to like tell that like the frontman is like an infiltrator, like it's not like his son, like it's not like the frontman. Like the boss being able to tell that, and then like with that absolute stealth, like when like Jun Ho would be like least expecting in terms of my right now my impression that like it would be more likely the person that like running the stadium would be most likely the person that would be uh like the light of Janho. Is like when Janho would be like least expecting it. Is like in the scenario that I'm going to right now of the revolution. So definitely another revolution right now has got like the frontline right now that frantically searching for like the intruder in his home. Like I'm like definitely for like where exactly Janho will be like hiding and from where like Janho will be like launching his like stealthy attack on like the front man and also like it could be either from like the rope like and like the air ventilation thing like totally being present even on top of like the rope of like the front man as well. So like right now like front man frantically searching for for like intruder in his room like and like either jump for like basically jumping from like the rope or like jump for using his weapon and basically bringing down like the front man from like the rope from like the ceiling is like the from like the air ventilation area and like the ceiling. That's like the other possible scenario that I'm going to bring, or like the other possible scenario that I'm going to bring is like Janko still would be like hiding precisely in that library kind of like area within like the room of like the front man. They are like beneath a shelf like I'm going to, a kind of like a shelf like thing like I'm thinking that Janko might be hiding, and maybe like once like the front man will be searching is like a room and reaching like once like the front man will be searching his room and reaching that such library like area like maybe at that point like maybe would be like that when like Janko would be like still will be able to like quickly jumping out and basically taking out and bringing down like the front man is like the together one of these two possibilities is definitely my brain option. Okay, so like the Cleveland Victoria production right now at top like basically the frontman right now receiving like the call of like basically the two gamers of like finding a body in like their ice to game island. Like I'm pretending like that body would be like I'm still thinking about the production that like that body that they have found would be like the precise uh dead body of that precise person that like Janko when he had initially like tried to like infiltrate into like the ship like basically at that point to the ship that was heading to like Squid Island like basically at that point like that size Squid workup that Janko had taken the life of I think within the car like basically and had basically pushed out of like the ship like basically it could be his body containing like Janko, I think like it contained like Janko had basically put his like identity card onto that body. So like definitely it would be exactly that body that I'm talking about. Specific representation would be like totally like to like Janko's like left running out like I'm talking like that body exactly of that studio murder is what I'm talking would have right now what a show in the studio island and has been found by the studio murder, which would be like the precise spot to like the front man right now saying they have found a body in like the island. the Squid Game Island. It's definitely my good friend. So like right now itself, I'm looking like the frontman right now itself like received another call saying that is from one of the game also saying that like they have found like an identity card from that body of the Squid Game worker and like the name of like the identity card of like this person from like the police like by the name Jun-ho like basically that is what I'm considering right now for like the for like this that's like right now going to happen. So like that happening and it's like the scenario that I'm considering and straight away like the frontman like totally like the frontman straight away being like totally pleased at that point and basically frontman straight away shouting out like Jumbo's name within that library home is like the scenario that I'm considering. So like my was very impressive definitely that is sitting on this definitely that like the frontman right now itself without much delay at all like receiving another call from like the one of the investigative workers and basically revealing the identity of like the intruder is like the scenario like through that identity card in like that body like the scenario that I'm looking and straight away like I'm thinking maybe like the frontman laughing hysterically and basically like saying like John Pope come out like basically along with such lines and saying and I'm thinking like at that point itself would be when like I'm thinking like John Pope quickly attacking, stealthy attacking like the front man is like from like that library areas like scenario that I'm going to bring and definitely I'm going to bring like the front man being brought down. But like I'm going to like Janho definitely not taking like the front man's life. Like I'm going to bring like Janho totally trying to interrogate like the front man and basically during that interrogation I'm going to bring like and at that point, I was like Jumbo trying to like interrogate like the front man, but like I was different like and at that point like Jumbo I was different seeing like the face of like the front man and basically the Jumbo trying to like interrogate like the front man, but like the front man like desperately trying to like not reveal anything. So like while the short interrogation like while Jumbo would be desperately trying to like interrogate like the front man, I was thinking would be when like precisely like another call in that very same telephone reflection from man would be ringing and like at that point like I'm the like the at that point most likely the front man laughing hysterically maybe and like jump out quickly like like silencing like the front man using like a cluster or something it's like the possible scenario that I'm looking for and at that point like jump out quickly like picking up like the telephone and basically the telephone like I'm looking the cost could be like kind of like in like an irritated voice like I'm looking telling like the phone man asking like the phone man where are you like the VIPs have arrived like where are you that announces like the scenario that I'm looking so straight away I'm looking like at that point felt back Janho not saying anything back but like Janho quickly straight away hang up the phone and Janho straight away like disguising as like the front man and basically heading off to like the uh, front to the entrance of like the stadium building and basically him that way like receiving like the VIPs and at that point would be when like the biggest shock to happen for like Jumbo with like him realizing whom the VIPs are. I'm still thinking to my personal that like the VIPs will be like individuals that Jumbo will be knowing far too well as like well-known and extremely popular figures on like all across like the world in like the world of like the Squid Game web series, which like some of them like even Janko himself might be like a fan of. He's definitely also like them being revealed to be like the VIPs to like Steven scenario that and also bring and that being like the biggest shock like Janko at that point like the winter scenario that I'm going to bring. Yet like Janko totally doing the absolute best to like play it cool and things succeeding it at it to a certain point, but like I'm still going against it. So you remember the which to be importantly the boss that would be like calling out like Janko's like this guy eventually and would be taking centers like the scenario that I'm sitting on. Yes, so like looking at the direction right now for like the husband who had basically taken the life of his wife during like the Oxford game, like basically right now with like the game causing him like causing him to like go crazy right now. I'm looking like him right now totally acting it out in like an extremely aggressive manner towards like the stadium of the India right now showing up. So like the scenario that I'm looking at. That are fitting in like him the one of those good game of reflecting his life is like the scenario that I'm looking for it. And my brother ambition. So like I'm looking like him to like totally lose it and go crazy and basically him like begging like the studio workers, maybe that for like him totally begging, repeatedly begging like the studio workers to like that he wants to leave like the studio building. Uh, but like I'm also like the studio worker and telling him that like that is like privilege of like the role that he can't leave, and then still him like continuing to like say the very same thing, and him telling repeatedly asking telling like the studio worker to like let him leave from like the studio meeting. So like at that point I'm remembering like uh, that act of that man like considered as like breakage of like the role, and like that way like the studio worker taking the life of that husband. This is like the scenario that I'm very perfect right now, and my personal impression. And my personal impression that like the guilt time was bring most likely being like extreme for like him, especially because of like I'm remembering like the scenario in like the both again between like the pair of like the husband and wife might have been in their mouth again like I'm remembering like right off the bat like it might have been like the both the husband as well as the wife telling each other that basically that he should move on and win like this big game, that like she would like purposefully lose, and it might have been the same thing with like him as well, the husband as well, saying that he would purposefully lose that she could so that like she could move on. So like I'm possibly like it might have been initially both of them trying to like purposefully lose like the telling each other, trying to convince each other that like each other and one of them would be like that like the wife would, might have been like for like the majority of like the 30 minutes time like I'm the wife might have been trying to like convince like the husband, and like the husband might have been trying to like really convince the wife that like he would give up, like he will lose, and so that like the wife would move on. So like another thing, this might have been totally going on until like the time might have been like until like a very few minutes might have been left, and at that point I was thinking like the wife, the husband might have suddenly stopped saying that basically he would lose on purpose so that like the wife will move on. So like at that point like I was thinking like the wife kept saying that she would lose on purpose so that like he could like go on, and then he might have remained silent, and basically then like and he might have played the game with like his wife at that point, and so like his wife might have definitely successfully lost so that like his, her husband could like live on that way might have died. So that way might have been how like his wife might have lost the purposefully lost the game and died, might have been what might have happened, because like I'm remembering like the fear as like time was almost over, like the fear might have been even more for like the husband that time, like he might have eventually went silent, and basically might have like totally like might have totally went with like his wife, but his wife acted like purposefully trying to like lose to him, that like that might have been how his wife might have lost to him in like the first Indian market to game, and like might have been what might have happened with the film about everything. But like probably after that, like I'm looking like the guilt might have been haunting the both husband, that I'm considering like that guilt would be like totally like like would be what's causing him to like right now probably go crazy, and basically I'm considering like the situation to like basically my consideration that the situation to like eventually lead to like the husband being taken the life of by like one of like the game of the, so they're saying that like the husband has like broken the rules of like not being able like with in between like the game once like without like the majority votes, which is like the scenario that way like the husband as well side, which is like right now itself without like spill at all. It's like the scenario that I'm looking in my listening. Okay, so like definitely about the Korean culture right now, both like Sangu right now acting dominant and basically shouting out not just to like the husband but also to like the entire of like, the remaining speaking candidate, telling them that if they feel guilty, they can leave, like they leave, or that like tell them to leave and all that. Like basically, definitely even while saying all this, like Sangu as well, definitely would be like drowning in that absolute guilt of like freaking and betraying and like Ali. So it's definitely my brother in Russia. And also the fact that Ali has like a family will be like another thing that might be like an added feeling of like an even more of like a guilt for Sangu right now. It's definitely my brother in Russia. But like still Sangu right now will be like barely on like holding on to that hope, that hope that they believe Sangu would be having that hope, and that hope would be like the only thing that that would be keeping Sango standing right now without breaking down is definitely my opinion. And that's hope that basically Sango will be having that like he will definitely be like the winner of like the Squid Game. He will definitely win all six Squid Games and will like get that reward money. And basically that absolute confidence or confidence that Sangu would be having right now would be like the sole thing that would be right now keeping Sangu going without breaking down. It's definitely my the rain version. And Sangu, you know, like saying this like I'm different like Sangu will be definitely determined to like even more than ever like I'm different right now. Sangu will be determined because of especially because of like that skill of like working and taking Ali's life like definitely I'm different like right now Sangu's like determination would be like greater than ever to like basically win the Squid Squid Game, get that reward money and basically Sangu will be definitely right now, even while Sangu says all this, like even right now, Sangu will be like only determined to like basically after getting all that money for like Sangu will be like determined to like get all that money and give a good portion of that money to like at least family. It's definitely my best friend. That way, like to at least try to like make up for like taking at least like Sangu will be like definitely determined to the exactly that. It's definitely my voluntary impression right now. And I'm still sitting my voluntary impression that like Sangu definitely would be like most likely saying that to like San Guillaume. Definitely still since I'm definitely prepping for like being like the for like they're only being able to be like a single winner for like the 60 game. So it's like November considering like Sangu as well will be completing like eventually completing the game, but still Sangyeon will be completing the game even a bit before like Sangu, and that resulting in like Sangu dying. But like I'm considering like Sangu having like Sangu's dying words to like Sangyeon and the will be most likely to take care of like Ali's family, like with the reward money, like basically Sangu telling something along the lines to like Sangyeon, like only remind Sangyeon about like Ali because of like that guilt, even at that last second, like that guilt would be like present with going to be like seriously asking for like some word that ambassador like that to be like some was dying words at that point about just about Ali that because like Sang will be like absolute talking that the reward money like Sang will be like but by now Sang will be like knowing Sang given like far too well so like I was when Sang for Sang from Sang's point of view like it will be far too obvious for like Sang that basically Sang given with the reward money would be like totally taking care of that Sango's mother, but like Sango might have that fear at that last moment of like Sango will be having that absolute fear of like Sango forgetting about Ali. So like that is what I'm considering like the dying words of like Sango at that point would be that Ali like that I'm the friend like Sang even like Sango basically maybe even just shouting Ali towards like Sangyeon right before like Sango dies is like being the possible scenario that I'm considering. And definitely, and eventually being like San beyond that possible eventually after like winning like the reward money, like basically will be giving a portion of that reward money to like Ali's family. It's like the as well as like would be like taking care of like family's mother as well. It's like the and his own mother is like the scenario that I'm considering, but like still I'm considering like in the case of like Sangyeon, I'm considering like by the time Sangyeon will be completing all Squid Games and would be leaving like the Squid Game building with like the reward money, I'm considering by then still being like too late is like the scenario that I'm looking for like Sangyeon mother like that I'm considering like luckily Sangyeon's mother I'm considering like most likely would have died by the time like Sangyeon would be like leaving like the Squid Game, getting like the Squid Game and leaving like the Squid Game with building with like the reward money. By then, like Sanjion's mother would have already died. Is like the range of scenario that I'm talking. So, like Sangyeon still like take care of like Sango's mother instead, as well as like giving a good portion of like the money to like Ali's family as well. It's like staying over full scenario that I'm talking about. Okay, so like the real person right now is a black person and right now that approaching this black person with like a golden mask, like I'm looking like that person with like the golden mask would be that key billionaire boss who will be like running the game. The first person that like the man through the telephone box. So like I'm looking like he might have given its orders to like the man to not even enter his room if like the situation is like requires if, like the situation unless like the situation is so important. It's definitely my first remedy. So like right now, for instance, like the situation of like the VIP is showing up, like I'm thinking that will be the sole reason for like the front man even being allowed by like the his boss, like the person with like the word mask to be the end of this room. It's definitely my first mission. Like that will be the first reason for there being like a telephone in like the front man's uh, in like the frontman's room, which like the like it's like billionaire to be like the bottom of the person who's like running this game will be using to like communicate with like the frontman. It's definitely my personal impression. So this instant is like and I was like him to definitely be exactly within like the skill game building is definitely my personal impression. Yet like I'm looking like him only using phone to like contact like the frontman. It's definitely my personal impression. So that will be what's happening is definitely my personal impression. So and my operator is that like this person, like the front man would definitely be the son of the precise like person with like the golden mask, this precise he will be totally a billionaire. That would be like totally running like and that's the game. And also right now with like the remaining VIPs, like basically the VIPs that have right now showed up to like this game building, like them all wearing like golden mask, golden mask that are similar that's like similar to like the golden mark of like the boss, like the person who's like running like the uh and that affects the game. I'm particularly like it to be precisely due to like it just even like the person running like the Squid game, like basically the person with like the golden mask like himself, the person that like the front man for like through like the telephone like that billionaire like on top of like these two definitely would be like a VIP and like he will be known by a totally different identity by the rest of the world in like the world of like the Squid Game web series definitely will be very. So like him to like the person the billionaire who's like running the Squid Game will be also like an extra popular figure who's known throughout like the world who's of like the world of like the Squid Game web series definitely might be very interesting. Yet at the same time, he will be also like the old man with like dementia. His like childhood friend as well. It's definitely memorable. His childhood friend who might have never been able to like defeat like the old man with dementia in not back during their younger days. Like uh, they might have played a lot of like games like non-serious games and basically Halobar and all sorts of games. And each and every single time it might have been just like that Indian artists like running like this game might have always lost to like the old man, the like dementia. That's definitely what might have happened in like the past when they were childhood, when they used to play during like the childhood. It's definitely my childhood and youth is definitely members rendered. So definitely the reaction as for like why exactly that the person running it is to game doesn't at all won't be at all like even stepping out of this room at all this room itself, which will be most likely in like within like the very same game building. Yet like my generation, he would never step out of the room at all. And like the precise reason would be precisely because of him being that much of like a popular figure. That basically even the mark his mask like he might have that fear that basically the Squid Game workers like if they see him like they might still recognize him. So like there will be this extreme fear within like the billionaire class that would be like running like the entire studio, and this would be the present sole reason for like even like the front man most likely only being given like most likely would have been only given like the permission by that boss who's like running the game to only uh open the door to his room within like the game building and talk to him in person only while like the situation is like extremely important, they don't like. And that will be the first reason for like him like always maintaining communication even to with like the front man only using phone. Definitely remember everything. Yet like he would be like only okay with like the front man basically seeing his face. Especially with like right now the front man showing up in front of like the billionaire boss and him taking off his mask like the sole reason for all this would be especially be to like the front man being his own son. It's definitely my personal impression that I'm still thinking about it. So like personally, my personal impression right now is that the VIPs right now having arrived and basically like the host being like the host billionaire is like running like the Squid game, and basically the host like the actual host not showing up and instead him sending like the front man to be like the temporary host. Like basically like the precise reason for like the billionaire not showing up, it would be precisely exactly due to like the old man with signature, due to like this that is definitely one of the current. So like I'm looking right now, the fourth billionaire is like running like studio. He would be like maybe in like an emotional kind of like a situation, precisely because of like basically like where like he might have been like so extremely happy for like the death of like the old man with dementia right now towards the end of like the first game. And since like after like the first game like not much time was left before like the VIP showed up. It could be precisely because of this reason that like the first billion was like running like billion not not being able to like show up as like a prostitute because like he will be right now going through such an extremely emotional situation because like he will be right now feeling like as if like he has like the boss billionaire who's like running this game right now. Uh, who will be right now only feeling as like he has like achieved this like ultimate like long term biggest goal in his life. Will be along the line. He will be thinking is definitely my best friend. And I'm definitely right now running also like the special skill game as well. Numbers of would be precisely intended to precisely targeting like the even like special skill games which was like conducted in like the game candidates room like that whole fighting and everything that happened. They are like considering that might have been precisely the biggest priority behind that conducting such a special skill game might have been precisely to have like the old man type or the dementia type definitely have different and so it might have been precisely according to the order of like the boss the billionaire boss was like running this skill game by the way, processing focus out of that like inspection to gain as well might have happened in like the speaking candidate like room. That's definitely my personal impression. That might have been like the target might have been like the old man like the beginner might have expected like Amber precisely because like Amber like once like the old man had basically showed up to like the school game and played like the first school game like the red light green light and played it better than every other school game candidates like at that point I'm like that extreme jealousy and memories of like the childhood of like the billionaire was like running this good game like of him like during some childhood like all those into like the old man like basically all that memories might have kicked in and basically like the billionaire might have been extremely disturbed with like the person who he might dislike the most in like the world would be most likely the old man with dementia but like with like him with like the very first good game itself like where like the billionaire boss might have probably expected like the old man to face the suffering that like he might have been uh, totally looking towards that happening but like instead like him getting he might have only gotten the shock like the old man with dementia performing far better every other student candidate. So along this lines, that was what had happened during like the first red light, green light game, like that might have easily disturbed and frustrated like the billionaire that was like running the game might have been what might have happened definitely over the reason. Like even after returning back like the old man, even after returning back like and in the second foot game, like the billionaire might have been totally patiently expecting for like the old man to die in like the second foot game. So like that as well when once like old man successfully like survived like the second school game as well. Like at that point I'm remembering like uh, at that point solely during like Sangyon as well. Like the old man had basically survived like the second school game as well. Like at that point as well I'm remembering the dinner might have been extremely frustrated, even more frustrated at that point seeing like the old man win like the second school game as well. It's definitely my birthday. So like at that point, he might have been totally extremely frustrated that he might have straight away given the order to like conduct like the Squid game, expecting the special Squid game would be resulting in like the old man's death. Might have been what might have happened. It's definitely one of the reasons. So like the old man even in like the special Squid game as well, feeling the spotlight like the old man shouting out and basically all the remaining student candidates who are like fighting on until that point, like basically stopping and basically watching like the old man like basically that way, like seeing like the old man once again take the spotlight straight away. And husband like the billionaire at that point as well might have been extremely frustrated even more, and basically might have straight away given the order seeing that and seeing like the old man once again take the spotlight exactly like the how like the old man would have might have always taken the spotlight even during all the childhood Squid games that the old man might have played with like the billionaire bosses like running the Squid game. So like at that point like he might have been once again like the boss might have been once again frustrated seeing like the old man like basically stealing the spotlight even in like the Squid game that like he might have straight away given call like the fun man given the order to like the fun man to like stop like the Squid game. Might have been what might have happened because like the billionaire simply couldn't might have not been able to take like the old man getting more spotlight exactly like during his childhood. He's definitely my impression. So uh, after that, like right now, finally, like even in like the third Squid game as well. And my very impression right now that for like the third Squid game, precisely being selected to be precisely such an extremely dangerous and difficult tug of war would be precisely with as that the third game being decided to be like the tug of war game as well. That as well would be like the billionaire who started running this game, his decision to like get rid of like the poor old man with dementia is definitely going to go through dementia. So actually because of like uh, uh, because like the old man being like the only old man in like the entire among like the entire of the student candidates like the billionaire might have only expected so like the old man not being able to like do much at all during like the tug of war game so that like basically at that point like the first team in which like regardless of which team like the old man ends up like basically that team would be like having like one less member like basically the old man not being able to do much at all to pull like the tug of war fully like the tug of war might have been what like the billionaire might have is like running this game might have only overconfidently expected is definitely my position. And even at that point, like things might have only backfired on like the billionaire who is like running like the game might have been what might have happened. And like I'm it might have been solely due to like the death of like the dot dot basically ending up with like the total game candidate the doctor student candidate ending up with like ending up with like the total student candidate number being turned into like an odd number. Like it might have been at that point that basically like he might have decided to like at least in this like the billionaire in this like fourth right he might have set up like such a trap for like the poor old man that he to ensure that he definitely dies. Um, uh, he definitely dies doesn't so that like to ensure that the old man doesn't definitely survive won't be able to like survive at all. Like the corpse Gideon might have been like the sole reason for like the corpse Gideon being set up in such a manner. So like I'm still thinking about the impression right now has for like the woman basically we couldn't form a pair in like the for uh, for like the corpse game. Like basically that might have definitely been a trap for like the old man with dementia, but like it but like what might have happened would be like instead of like the old man falling for the trap, like basically that woman ending up falling for the trap, and that would be the sole reason for like her even alive even right now. But if it, instead of her, like if it was like the old man that wasn't able to like form a team before like the boxing, then like the old man right now won't be alive at all. It's definitely my popular impression. So like right now, finally, like the villain of like billionaire forced to be like running in the dust game through like the fourth Squid game towards the end of the fourth Squid game with like the old man like finally dying like basically that might have been like an extremely villainous kind of like an emotional moment for like the billionaire who would be like running the Squid game that like he would be only in like an emotional kind of like a state hysteria kind of like a state as well. With like him thinking the villain thinking that he has achieved something or like that he has uh, finally been able to like get like this like revenge that he wanted to take out on like the poor old man for like all this like childhood friend like the old man like basically for all this great number of years that basically right now he would be like the billionaire would be in feeling that he has achieved something and basically would be in such an emotional kind of like a state that basically he simply right now won't be able to like straight away show up and create and create and receive like the VIP VIP system. So like this would be like the precise sole reason for like basically him even him not showing up. It's definitely my consideration. So definitely like he might have wanted to like enjoy like the billionaire might sit like the hospital game and like was only just now over and like the old man has only just now died like everything like the billionaire who's like running the game he might have wanted to like maybe or enjoy like that moment of like so what he will be doing as his like ultimate victory definitely my opinion so like this will be like around like the sole reason for like the boss billionaire who's like running like the game of showing up to like receive like the VIPs right now and instead like the frontman having to be the host and basically receive like the VIPs right now. It's definitely my personal theory and my personal opinion right now. Yeah, so like definitely my personal impression right now with like Jumbo right now finally the guy felt like a waiter like finally with like Jumbo having made it to like the VIPs like but like definitely even though the front man is also present there like but still Jumbo with this guy as a waiter like but Jumbo what's like the fifth Squid game would be revealed. I'm preparing like the Squid game to be like an extremely scary and extremely dangerous, extremely difficult Squid game. It's like the scenario that I'm looking. I'm preparing like Stanford only, and definitely like it's like the VIPs, like and not a single VIP, but like four or five or six VIPs around like five or six VIPs are there, but like Jumbo right now is in such close range and everything. Jumbo definitely this is being like the protect location where like everything Jumbo would be finally actually making his move and basically taking one of like the VIPs like a hostage. Then how do we like like it will be most likely precisely while like the fifth Squid game would be revealed and like right as like the fifth Squid game would be like maybe even beginning and like as like the Squid game candidates would be like starting to die one after like another like ambition like right when like the game first two game begins like itself ambition like jump for totally that uh, totally making his move and basically taking one of like the hostage VIP the hostage is like the scenario that I'm moving and I'm looking like jump for most likely taking that exact VIP like the hostage like which would be like the best VIP goes to home that had basically stare Jumpo while Jumpo had given that VIP the drinks the name of the rainbow. It would be that exact VIP that Amber Jumpo would be like taking a hostage and straight away like the front man being shocked and all the other VIPs being shocked. But like Amber like since like it would be like Jumpo would have taken a VIP like skills with like uh, still like the front man won't be able to like do anything at all. It's like the scenario that I'm looking and it will be like while the like him has like a hostage and different like Janho making him reveal everything about like the Squid game. It's like the scenario at that point while like the Squid game and I was different like maybe like Janho ordering to stop like the Squid game or something sort of like the scenario that I'm looking. Maybe like the front man that way ordering like the Squid game being to be stopped like give from and giving such a command. And so that way, like the Squid game being stopped at midway, and this midway, and then the different like the front man like while and the Junko was like definitely while having like one of the VIPs like a hostage like right in front of it, the front man all the other VIPs like and the different like Junko like forcing that VIP hostage to like basically speak up and reveal everything about it. So like Ambassador like him revealing everything he knows, that VIP revealing everything here, and basically revealing everything he knows about like this game. And like Ambassador like Jumbo asking like the frontman there as well, like a lot of questions as well. Like the scenario that has been, and even like the frontman will be totally scared, uh, and like will be doing exactly like Jumbo says at that point is like the scenario that I was saying. But like I'm looking like quite all this will be happening like precisely like I'm looking like Jumbo. Basically, my recommendation that like Jumbo's luck precisely running out will be precisely the factor that basically the boss, like the person running like the Squid game, haven't showed up to where like the VIPs, all the VIPs are right now. Basically, that factor would be what I'm trying like to be that unexpected backfiring for like of like a situation for like for Gunpo is like the scenario. Gunpo is like the scenario that I'm looking. So like precisely while Gunpo would be having like one of like, the VIPs hostage and that way like through that interrogation like through not interrogation, but like by sharing them like anything like Janko getting gaining all the knowledge and information about like everything about like the studio from like the frontman as well as like the offstage VIP. And at that point, like it would be precisely after like John would have gained all that knowledge. It would be at that very moment that I'm like the billionaire boss will be like running like the industry. At that point, would be like when he would be like steadily showing up to that room and like he would be straight away taking the life of like Jun-ho. It was like the scenario that I'm looking. Jun-ho won't even be at all seeing that coming, like seeing him coming at all, like the scenario that I'm looking. So like it would be precisely like the billionaire boss that would be running like the industry, his studio that would be taking Jun-ho's life. So like I was looking like even after gaining all that knowledge, like I was looking like or that knowledge not being of like any use to like junk food. With like junk food dying in that spot at that point of like the scenario that I'm looking and definitely as for like junk food's brother definitely obviously I'm looking like junk food at that point while he would be keeping the VIP hostage like junk food asking like the frontman about him. And basically the frontman revealing that like after like winning like the Squid Game after winning like the 2015 Squid Game info basically had got all the reward money and basically and I was pretty like him most likely that from and also revealing that basically but like even after like each year like they will be having like a single Squid Game winner that Squid Game winner will be targeted by this precise frontman as well as like the boss running like Squid Game like basically their team and basically they'll be ensuring that like that money is like stolen from that winner of each year's like Squid Game so that and that way to like basically and they will be like stealing in such a stealthy manner that basically the winners won't even realize that it was like the people that had ran like this game that had stolen like the money from like the winners so that like the winners would be like once again eventually be having no other hope but to like once again be lured back into like the Squid Game and that way like the winners of like each of the year from like 1999 the majority of those winners have either ended up uh, dying would be along the lines of the different like on re-entering on like the Squid Games will be along the lines that I was bring from man to make the reveal and at that point I was like some was shockingly realizing that basically like that all these Squid Game candidates that are putting in risking their life and putting in all the efforts of like eventually going to end up being pointless like basically that shocking realization happening for like that shocking realization happening for Janko like the scenario that I'm looking at. So like I'm looking like while Janko would be asking about info, like I'm looking like the frontman also revealing that basically info after like winning like the 2015 Squid Game and receiving like the reward money like basically info's money as well they had stolen and so like info after having like his money stolen like info had in fact entered into like the 2020 Squid Game but like after like the first after win and had won like the first red light, green light Squid Game. But like after like the first Squid Game, like in like 2020, like through the majority voting, like basically info had basically along with the other Squid Game candidates had left like Squid Game building, and since then info had returned back to like the Squid Games since then. Would be like along like the lines of like the reveal that ambassador the frontman to make to like to Junko at that point is like the scenario that I was looking. So like at that point Junko shockingly realizing that like he had gone through all this effort and risked his life and did everything with like his highest priority might have been definitely to save his like brother but like Junko at that point realizing that like this entire time his like brother Info was not even in like the game building but just like outside in like the city in like basically like John was shockingly realizing this and Amber Supreme it will be at that precise point that Amber Supreme was likely the boss billionaire who will be like running like the adaptable stadium like to like finally show up and him to like stealthily show up and him to like probably uh take the life use his weapon and take the life of like Janko and Janko dying at that point with that absolute disappointment is like the winter scenario that I was putting another privilege and the precise moment that Janko will be dying like I was putting that way like and like I'm putting like the scenario to be like Janko dying and basically Janko not taking the life of any of like the hostages. It's like the scenario that I'm observing right now. And at that point, like Jan-ho dying without taking the life of like the VIP hostage was like the scenario that I was like, and straight away like the VIP that was like a hostage by Jan-ho, like if Jan-ho dying like can be freed and basically straight away like the game straight away are assuming is at that point itself is like the scenario that I'm watching. So like until that point I'm watching like the post scripting candidates like while in like the middle of the danger of the game like I'm like due to Jun-ho's like action like ambassador like and taking like he's the VIP hostage like ambassador in the Squid game from that point on being paused and basically all the Squid game candidates would be playing the Squid game like would be like ordered to like not move and stand exactly there at their position in like the Squid game and basically them being told to like proceed separately after like after eventually like Jun-ho would be like dying by the hands of like the billionaire boss would be like running studio like straight away at that point like until that point like all the studio candidates would be like would be like until then like the studio game being paused and like after like jump of stuff like straight away like the studio game being assumed is like the scenario that I was doing and certainly because of that like I was doing like among like game that candidates like a lot a bunch of them like only losing their whole continuity of like or like their flow of like playing that full game that I'm looking straight away as like the full game would be received like I'm looking a bunch of among like the current 16 remaining school game candidates like a bunch of them like straight away dying ending up dying in the sixth game is like the in the scenario that I'm looking and my impression. So that also my consider prediction for like among like Squid candidates like the one like among like the ones that will be winning like potentially winning like the Squid game like I'm also like there will definitely be like DXO, there will definitely Sang-woo and like Savior as well as like that woman who basically had wasn't able like choose a pair and had basically survived like and won like the fourth Squid Game without playing like the pop Squid like her as well definitely surviving like the Squid Game as well. It's like 7% that I'm bringing, but like after like the first Squid Game and before like the sixth Squid Game will be starting like I'm looking like some sort of a situation resulting in like savior as well as that woman like escaping through that like their ventilation path is like the and that way escaping them escaping into like the airway like basically ventilation airway network uh, huge airway network in like the ceiling of like the studio building. It's like the just scenario that I'm looking in my program. Okay, so like the name of the presentation right now is like the pronoun right now revealing the demo of like the specific game to like the realities like I'm looking like the specific demo of like the specific game looking like the like I'm looking definitely actual Squid Game comfortable like to be like the task for like each of like the Squid Game candidate for like them to like one by one then basically pass through like a long bridge that would be at the serious height that basically falling from that bridge would be like certain stuff. It's definitely my comprehension. So like such a bridge at like an extremely tall height where like I'm possible like totally while like the game would be to like for each of the candidates to be able to like make it from to cross like the bridge and reach like the other end of like, the bridge. But like I'm possible like while crossing like I'm possible there have to be like all sorts of like swinging kind of like extremely dangerous like obstacles like swinging like close to like the bridge while through like that area where like they would be uh, moving through like the bridge like I'm bringing like a whole lot of great number of like extremely dangerous like obstacles like swinging through that path. It's like the uh, scenario that I'm just setting a member to the immersion. So like this would be what like the first good game would be like the actual first good game would be like just me my personal immersion right now. And my personal impression right now as for like the guy who plays a lot like I'm just saying like him in like the first good game I'm definitely something like him to most likely definitely him to definitely fail and him to like end up dying and like not surviving like the good game is like the scenario that I'm looking at the French. Also definitely have a impression right now as for like there being 60 mannequins to like choose from like containing bets to like choose from like I'm looking like that would be definitely like the team selection. Just definitely my birthday anniversary. It would be for like the team selection where like I'm looking uh, like all the precise quest like that contains like odd numbers would be like consecutive odd numbers would be and I'm going to be like themes of two as well in this exact like the Squid Game as well. I'm looking like it should be only playable through themes of two like as in pairs, especially when I'm doing version. So like the crossing and walking through like the bridge is what I'm looking. So that might have to be done only through as like a team of players. Like maybe like two uh, candidates might have to like at the same time like walk simultaneously on a narrow bridge at a serious height. While all the swimming obstacles would be like swimming dangers and swimming obstacles would be passing through that area. Is like the through that path, great number of such obstacles will be passing through that path would be like most likely the path that never to the temperature. So like I'm also bring and I'm also maybe like there to be like also like a thread as well. Maybe it was like west from like number 1 to 16. These west would be like connected, like the two would be connected among like the pairs, like the west would be like connected as well. It's also like a possibility that I'm also so that it would be like if one falls like the possibility of like the other as well like in the pair like in the pair thing like if one falls like the other as well falling like the probability will be seriously high. It's also like a possibility that I'm considering and my primary aversion. So that might be how like the physical game, the nature of like the physical game would be. And I'm considering like the consecutive odd numbers, two odd numbers being like a team, and the consecutive two even numbers being a team. So like basically in such a manner, like or among like the 15 candidates, like the teams will be like most likely formed by by the ones who will be like wearing by all of them, one like all of them will be wearing like the vest number from 1 to 16. It's definitely my consideration impression right now. So like my consideration impression right now is that definitely I'm considering like Sangyeon to like only take like the number one vest. That's definitely my consideration. The vest was like the number one on it. Exactly due to like soul and I'm considering that was only due to like the memories of like due to like the memories of like the old man. It's definitely my consideration impression. So that and I was like TXO was likely picking like the best number 10. It's like one scenario of like a possibility that I'm looking or like the other possibilities maybe for like Sangyeon and DXO fighting for that that's just like the number one on it. And maybe like DXO Sangyeon totally eventually totally giving up and basically maybe Sangyeon picking like the number 10 versus like the number 10 on it since like it's like still 0 and 1 like basically since like that one is like or like I'm assuming picking like either 10 or like 11 at that point and I'm assuming that's like only under the scenario that someone either some only on the scenario that if the DX fights with like Sangyeon for that number one press. If such a situation happens, then I'm assuming Sangyeon picking either 10 or 11. Yeah, and if that doesn't, such a fight doesn't happen, then I'm assuming that Sangyeon definitely picking like the best with like the number one on it. It's definitely not a second question. And so since you like in my according to my personal impression, I'm only putting like the fifth Squid game would be most likely a Squid game that would be like only playable through like as like a pair, like I'm looking for like so like that's like my personal impression. I'm only putting like as for like this Squid game like Sangyeon's pair, I'm putting like ending up precisely being like DX and solely due to like the selection of like the best like and like that way like without them like without them consciously doing this like it ending up in such a manner that basically Sangyeon getting precisely paired up with like DXO for like the two games like the scenario that I'm using and both Sangyeon as well as DXO surviving like the good game. Just like also definitely my very emotion. Okay, so like definitely my very emotion right now with like Junko right now secretly and steadily recording like the entire effect of the idea room right now. Like still I'm just like still that it's ending up being pointless is like the scenario that I'm using. So because like I'm looking like the much to play at all like once like by the time like the Squid game would be like beginning like definitely Jumbo taking one of like the appears like a first stage and like then it being like eventually it being like the precise VIP like the boss billionaire that would be that's like running in civilian in that's showing up late, resulting in like precisely in being able to like take down Jun-ho. And once like Jun-ho dies, like I'm like straight away the phone recording, like basically the phone will be phone of Jun-ho that he was recording, like all that will be getting straight away discovered and basically will be destroyed. That evidence will be totally getting destroyed at that point. It's like definite scenario that I'm looking and my opinion. Well, like definitely going to the impression right now with like the right now it's being revealed that like the light that's like the order of like playing like the Squid Game like and even like even then and right now with like the front as well as like last uh, numbers like us alone being remaining ambassador like still and ambassador familiar right now with like it being revealed that it's like the orders like the life represents like the orders of like game relay ambassador like right now the remaining Squid Game candidates who haven't played who haven't taken like the life ambassador them all right now will be like marching towards like the last life like the 16, 15 or 14 life like quickly getting taken like the scenario that I'm right and then bring like the at that point like the ones who weren't able to take like the last life was like 16, 15 and 14 life was like I'm looking like them taking like quickly those two something like major and I think like 1, 2 and 3 is like remaining at that point. It would be remaining at that point. So like I'm looking like those remaining would be quickly rushing to take the third and second life was like the scenario that I'm looking. And at that point like Sangyeon would be like totally thinking that basically that Sangyeon definitely will be taking the number one. Sangyeon at that point would be totally emphasizing to be totally thing that basically if like him having no other choice but to take number one like that was uh, because like that would be the only like what's remaining at that point like the scenario that I was in. But so like Sangyeon at that point the thing that basically that would be that's an extreme heavy disadvantage especially because of like Sangyeon not being won't have to like play the game without seeing others perform so that like he could learn from others in the stage. So like Sangyeon will be thinking along this line, but like still, but by the time Sangyeon will be think finally be able to like think along this lines, like all the life was, all the remaining life was, except for like the number one life was would have been taken as like the scenario that I'm considering right now. So like Sangyeon definitely taking that number one life was just like the scenario that I'm talking about different and that way like basically exactly like the old man's like shirt like number one shirt like I'm looking at Sanjay taking that ending up with that number one number of like the scenario that I'm looking so like initially I was doing at that point while taking the number one like was like Sanjay the bit only thing that basically like he's such an extremely heavy disadvantage skill I'm doing at that point Sanjay totally thinking of like old man, like the dialogue that the old man I think had said way back that basically like the last number like 456 doesn't suit Sangyeon that something along the lines of like number one to like Sangyeon more like basically Sangyeon may be thinking that and basically in the memories of like the old man like Sangyeon like suddenly getting that surge of like the confidence and basically Sangyeon straight away picking that number one West it's like that's the like the number one is like giving the scenario that I'm looking at another impression right now. So that's the like definitely another impression right now with like the number 96 like Squid Game candidate like basically asking and pleading like Sangyeon to like give him the number one number one best like I'm like still considering like Sangyeon like totally like considering like with everything he said like the 96 candidate like everything he said like to Sangyeon like Sangyeon might have totally been able to like relate to everything he said my personal impression especially it's like Sangyeon's like number itself being like 456 the last number like straight away after he even entered like the game itself like basically and all that like so definitely since it's like if like a Sangyeon at the bottom right now, the only thing that basically he gives up that number one because like my representations are like Sangyeon right now would be seeing this current situation of like picking the number one best as like Sangyeon's last chance to like basically to like set everything right into like basically through winning the game and getting all that money. So like basically even in such a situation like and I was like everything that neither Sugya candidate says to like Sanjon would be able to like totally relate with like himself And basically Sangyon at that point will be totally initially thinking of like basically giving up that uh, number one best to that student candidate who's like totally pleading to like Sangyon. So but then, like initially Sangyon's thinking to like give it up to him, give that number one like best up to that student candidate. But like at that point, I was different like Sangyon totally just for a moment like thinking that basically if Sangyon gives up the number one best to that 96 student candidate and his lips Sangyon takes the very last 16 like was that once again like Sangyon would be like hiding behind everyone and going last and once again like so if Sangyon does that like nothing would be changing in Sangyon's life even after everything that Sangyon has gone through after entering into the big game like it just totally made that even after all this like Sangyon haven't changed like even after like the old man like basically had done everything that he did for like Sangyon and for that even after like the old man that like even after him teaching Sangyon that hard lesson and everything in like the fourth during like the fourth Squid Game of like the Marvel Squid Game even after all that like Sangyon right now giving up that number one life quest to that Squid Game candidate would totally mean that like Sangyon will be once again hiding behind and going behind and taking the last number 16 West and basically so if Sangyon does that like nothing about like Sangyon even after all this like nothing about Sangyon would have changed would be along the lines of like the way in which like Sangyon will be feeling that number to bring like Sangyon straight away have a feeling to like give up the number one that's like the scenario that I'm doing and Sangyon uh taking that number one best and basically putting it on and telling him that like no he can't give up he can't um keep going behind and hiding behind everyone that he as well needs to change. So like basically Sangyon saying that like he won't give that number one but it's like and Sangyon wearing that number one vest and it's like the scenario that I'm looking bring another friend. And my other impression at that point for like the that the candidate who played Sangyon to like basically give up that uh, number one best like him without getting like the number one best like without Sangyong giving him like the number one best like the scenario that ended with. So like at that point him taking the number 16 best and basically him ending up dying solely due to like I'm supposed to like definitely there will be like the time barrier and I'm supposed to like the time being over and basically before like the number 16 Christian candidate would be either able to like play like the Squid or like would be before he will give the complete like uh the Squid Game and the Super definitely the time would be over and basically like it would be solely due to like him taking that number 16 ending up not taking like the but quickly and basically eventually ending up taking like the number 16 um, uh, but definitely and him not fighting like him playing and instead of fighting like due to like him playing Sangyon to like give up like the number one best like collectively all this due to all the reasons like basically that way resulting in that him became for like the number 16 best like resulting in like him dying because of like picking like the wearing like the number 16 best is like the danger scenario that I'm totally referring. And at that point, when he dies, like I'm bring Sangyon shocked when he's seeing that, and basically Sangyon realizing that basically he had totally made, and even at that point, Sangyon bring not feeling any guilt, but like Sangyon realizing that he had made the right choice because if he had made that right choice at that moment and had given instead given up his like number one like best to that person, then it would have been him at that point in his place, ending up dying at that point would be like the kind of like the realization that like Sangyon and the Turing having as like Sangyon as like the first Squid Game would be ending as like the scenario that I'm looking at. So like this is like the scenario that I'm looking at, like Sangyon not giving up his like number one West and basically that person like picking like the number 16 West and like time running out and him dying is like the scenario that I'm looking at. Okay, so like definitely was a great impression right now with like Sangyon like giving up this like number one West to like that guy and basically with like the game being revealed and basically that guy right now straight away looking back at like Sangyon with like holding like the number 16 but like I'm thinking definitely right now feeling totally he would be like into the totally a tricky character. Like he would be like right now totally he would have by now totally would be well aware as to like basically the soft side of like Sanjon that I'm discussing right now. He totally thoroughly trying to take advantage of like Sanjon's like soft side by like him once again doing that very same pleading, telling Sanjon to like exchange his like 16 best with his like number one best. Like the definite scenario that I'm considering right now for that guy to do. But like I'm considering like this time I'm considering like Sanjon to like not let him get taken advantage of is like the scenario that I'm considering. And Sanjon totally refusing to go for this like the scenario that I'm considering and my considering and like that guy I'm considering like this is like first like that's the number like I'm like him going first and him straight away not even being able to like from the sector in that bridge at all like the very initial three three or four steps itself I'm also like him probably falling from like the which is like the scenario that I'm going to bring another three impression. And my personal impression that like in the case of like Sanjeevan with like the nature of like the full game being revealed like even though currently Sanjeevan would be like totally feeling that he would be in such at the like his best league number 16 he would be at like such an advantageous position that like in even though Sanjeevan number like will be able to like see all the other Squid candidates trying to cross the bridge and the ones that have succeeded and precisely cross and the ones that are failed like by the time it's like it will be like 16 and it will be like Sanjion's turn like even though Sanjion would have precisely noticed observed and precisely gained all that experience and but still considering the pressure to be intense for like Sanjion precisely because like only few time will be like very less time will be left for like Sanjion to like crossover so like I'm going to bring Sanjion would be having like even though he would be like able to like see all the mistakes that like the game candidates before him would have made by them by crossing the bridge. Like still ambassador Sanjon time would be very short for like for Sanjon that ambassador like Sanjon totally like struggling like ambassador like Sanjon totally would be forced to like basically to speedily jump move across like the bridge. Sanjon would be like by the time it would be Sanjon's turn, like Sanjon would be having like absolutely no other choice but to like speedily run through the bridge, especially like the winter scenario that I was in. Sanjon would actually having no option to like slow down at all because like time would be that much short, like the scenario that I'm looking at. And I'm considering definitely in the case of like DXO, definitely I'm considering in the case of DXO, and I'm considering like maybe like Sangu as well as it wouldn't just be Sangu, but like Sangu as well could be like might have taken like the best that's like after KXO's number. It's also like it's just like DXO had picked like the main middle number to bring like definitely that sort of anywhere for impressions are like especially since like DXO had picked like the middle number middle number best like number like DXO totally like showing once again showing his like villain from the also like the scenario that I'm describing. So like DXO I'm looking like by the time DXO will be making it towards like the last 10 bird glass like it's like the scenario that I've been the flame of the DXO should like win like the rest of the game. So like but still I'm looking DXO totally showing his like extreme villanism at that point. So that when I'm looking like DXO would be at standing at the last final 10 bird glass like before fully crossing like the bridge like while KFC would be like would have finally landed on like the final last September draft. At that point, like the Hamburger KFC would be totally and thoroughly be relieved that like they so would be like absolutely sure that he will be able to like win the physical game at that point. So like with that so like I'm hoping at that point that extreme confidence resulting in like they so acting out in an extremely realistic manner with like I'm looking at they so only wasting time by standing on like the final December class like I'm totally putting like they so totally wasting time just to like ensure that like Sangyeon and like Sangwoo ends up to like increase the positive like Sangwoo and Sangyeon ending up time is like the scenario that I'm also putting. So I'm also putting the scenario to be like DXO standing at like the final tempered glass and basically like wasting time, but like I'm just putting the DXO will be like standing there like I'm just like DXO maybe like feeling kind of like dizzy or like with the huge height and everything, like maybe they also kind of like feeling dizzy or like as if like he's like kind of like losing balance, like so like I'm looking like they show maybe kind of like tiny bit kind of like about to lose balance and they also kind of somehow managing to like not fall and basically they also or like I'm looking at they should be about to maybe lose slightly losing balance and they also about to maybe fall and right then like they so probably somehow struggling they should be wasting time. So like on the point as they should be like villains they wasting time like eventually they so kind of like by standing there for such a long time like they so kind of like eventually kind of like from like losing balance. So like I'm looking at that point they so quickly jumping taking the jump as like they so be losing balance and about the ball like they so at that last second like quickly taking a jump and actually managing to like make it across if from like the final number classes like the scenario that I'm looking at. But still by then like a lot of time would be lost that I'm looking like some would still somehow would be managing to that make it across. But like by the time it would be like the 16th person turn, like by the time it would be like Sanjion's turn, unfortunately, definitely Sanjion would be having very less time left. So like at that point, Sanjion would be having like so very less time left to like complete like the crossing of acceptance. That I'm looking at like everyone who would have crossed like the bridge by then would be like totally expecting Sanjion to like definitely not be able to like make it. But like I'm looking like Sanjion only like totally like luck totally favoring Sanjon and Sanjon totally like with that somehow managing to like muster up that courage and basically Sanjon totally running through the glass bridges like the scenario that I'm even like the APs and everyone was totally expecting Sanjon to like definitely fall from the bridge but like I'm looking like luck totally favoring Sanjon and everything Sanjon like running across like the across the across like the glass bridge and being able to like make it precisely at the very last second is like the scenario that I'm looking. So like that totally impressive like all the VIPs to the extreme. It's like the scenario that I'm looking. So I'm just like crossing out like the bridge would be that totally shocking that not only this could be dangerous but like the VIPs even more. That I'm also like in like the and that I'm definitely like definitely I'm still thinking about the impression that like even though the old man was left in his name was like Ilnam and Sangyeon's name was like Sangyeon number seven. Still, Sangyeon would be in actuality that Sangyeon would definitely be the son of like the old man is like dementia. Like I'm it might not have been like Sangyeon's mother like in the past might have changed Sangyeon's name. It's definitely officially changed Sangyeon's name. It might have been what might have happened is like new and real. So like understanding the old man as well as like the boss, like the person, the beginner who's like running like the entire food game would be well aware that like Sanjo, like the sound, like the old man was like the nature definitely one of the things. So like after like the old man stuff like this, like the billionaire's next target would be specifically Sangyeon and Sangwoo, but like Sangyeon would be like even more of like a high priority of like the billionaire that uh that would be wanting that is definitely one of the impression. Yes, so like I'm assuming like the villain are totally being as well as the front man totally like by the time it will be Sangyong's turn to cross the bridge, like I'm looking like the villain are as well as like the front man totally or confidently probably or confidently possibly thinking that they will definitely Sangyong's going to die after the death of Sangyong's father in like the first game like the first game Sangyong is still dying would be along the lines like number 16 the billionaire would be like more confidently. The billionaire running like the Squid Game would be like more confident thingy. But like I'm also like at that very last second, that's like time only at the very last second, like trying to finally running his way into like basically at the very last second, reaching like the and reaching and crossing the bridge is like the scenario that I'm looking at that extremely impressive. Like the VIP, well, the VIPs like from their room private room like them totally cheering on like Sangyong's performance and basically them totally like praising Sangyong's performance and them being extremely impressed. And all this would be happening perfectly while by the time this would all be happening like I'm looking like uh, Jun-ho would have died by the hands of like the billionaire running against game and like so like the billionaire would be beside like the VIPs and watching this performance of like Sangyong as well as like just like all this year just being impressed and cheering on Sangyong and basically like praising Sangyong's performance and all that and that probably feels like frustrating the boss billionaire of that we're running in CDM is like the scenario that I'm basically delivering. That I'm basically like the stick game I'm basically would be set up in such a manner that like basically the game will be precisely and specifically targeting Sangyong. Definitely my was the impression that but like Sangyong might have some sort of like a weakness in some area, like Sangyong would be having like some sort of a specific weakness. Uh, just definitely my was the impression. So like maybe that that would be one thing that I'm looking for, like even from a childhood, like Sangyong might have had that weakness, and like that might have been something that like the billionaire, the person running like studio, like during his like younger days, like he might have totally noticed about Sangyong, especially when the impression. So like him totally maybe trying to take advantage of that to like basically ensure that Sangyong dies in like the sixth Vivian. So to ensure that like him precisely making like the basically setting up like the fifth game in such a way that will be specifically targeting Sangyong to maximize the probability of Sangyong failing and dying in like the fifth game. But still Sangyong ending up finishing and not only completing into the sixth game, but like completing like the sixth game like first before anybody else to like the scenario that ended the story. So by the time Sangyeon will be winning like the fifth game, and like the VIPs will be like totally will be totally like far too impressed by Sangyeon's performance in like the fifth game. Like at that point, I'm considering definitely the billionaire that will be running the sixth game. Um, him to totally be extremely frustrated and him to totally feel extremely defeated by the victory of Sangyeon is like the scenario that I'm considering bringing out of the. Okay, so like definitely the expression right now after right now Junko like basically naively like basically talking back and refusing to like listen exactly to what like the VIP wants, like basically that would have totally definitely hurt that exact VIP's like ego, and then definitely he would have straight away decided to like punish Junko. Definitely my personal ambition. So like that would be the necessary for like him uh, telling to all the other VIPs that he's going to keep that like the waiter, which is Janko described as like the waiter, like Janko right next to him. It's definitely my good. So like definitely I'm considering like as like CDM, and I'm considering like it was only duty like Janko being like the not being able to like stay aware or like conscious due to like the extremities of like the skill game that was extremely shocking for Janho's definitely with remembrance. So like Janho might be like losing his like focus and everything, seeing like due to like the extreme shock of like basically how extremely uh how extremely villainous like the games like the person running like this game and all these uh all these people are like basically that like I'm considering like right now definitely I'm considering like the Squid Game would be like starting like I'm considering like that besides VIP I'm considering like him totally nothing Janho is like the scenario that I'm considering. So like Janho would be like shockingly with nothing like faithfully with nothing like the Squid Game candidates would like one by one falling off like the bridge, and basically like the VIP sitting right next to that Junko, and basically finding excitement in all that like basically while at the same time like he would be like irritating Junko as well. It's like the scenario that, and maybe even hurting Junko and trying to even punishing Junko on the side like simultaneously as well. Like the scenario that I'm considering that Janho and possibly like to totally lose it, that I'm considering like Janho totally pulling out Janho's weapon and straight away taking that VIP that's like sitting right next to like Janho a hostage is like the scenario that I'm considering. That I'm definitely pretending to like happen, and definitely that way at that point that like Janho shouting out to like the front man to like stop like the Squid Game. That would be what that's like the definite scenario that I'm considering. That way, like I'm considering like, and I'm considering when that happens, I'm considering one of the game candidate would be most likely in the middle of like crossing like the fence. Is also like a possibility that I'm also perfect. Okay, so like definitely where I'm reaching right now with like the revelation that like the Squid Game having to be completed within like exactly 16 minutes. Like so, with like each player, each of like the each among the 16 players like having only a single minute to complete to cross like the bridge, like GlassBridge, like and definitely by the time eventually it will be Sangyeon's turn, like basically by then like I'm screen definitely for it to be like I'm definitely working for it to be specifically 10 seconds left for like the 16 minutes and that time to be over like just 10 seconds being left. And I was in Sangyeon completing and crossing like the bridge within that 10 seconds like right at like it would be only 1 second would be left. Like at that point, Sangyeon would be like jumping from the last 10 word class and making it precisely as like that 1 second would be over. Like Sangyeon would be like making it to and crossing like the bridge is like the eventual final scenario that ends up the game with the rainbow. So like the conditions about the program sample something like Sangyeon definitely would be eventually completing like the crossing of like the bridge within just 10 seconds. Like I'm looking for like precisely because of that I'm looking for Sangyeon. But when it comes to like Sangyeon, so Sangyeon will be totally running through like the glass bridge. It was like the scenario that I'm doing. Sangyeon will be totally running through like the glass bridge is like the and still managing to like cross like the glass bridge is like the scenario that I'm looking for on the frame. Also, definitely, my percentage impression as of right now, and that's definitely for like the woman who basically who wasn't able to make a pair during like the fourth Squid Game, and that way had won like survived like the fourth Squid Game without playing like the fourth Squid Game. Apart like her could definitely die in this like fifth Squid Game is like the scenario that I'm considering as of right now. And I'm considering like the ones that would be definitely the ones that I'm considering to definitely survive like the game, like the closing of like the closing of like the glass bridge is definitely I'm considering definitely protagonist. Sangyeon would be like completing with the first game that DXO I'm considering to complete that and then Sangwoo would definitely be completing Savior as well. I'm considering to definitely complete like the crossing of like the bridge and complete like the bridge. Like this much is like the specific definite people that I'm working things would be that would be like successfully completing like the physical game and crossing like the physics like the given scenarios that I'm looking at the frameworks. And my doctor impression as well that woman like to basically pass like the first game without the playing like the first game like and her most likely falling from like the bridge precisely as like she would be almost about to like complete like the bridge at that very last second like but the bridge have to like complete like the majority of that bridge but like as like she will be nearing like the completion of like the crossing of like the bridge towards the end time of like have to like totally unexpectedly totally lose her balance and basically maybe her or her to feel overconfident at that point and that causing her to like totally lose her balance and basically her, falling from like the glass bridge is like given the scenario that I'm also talking about the screen. So I said that the new good thing I'm mentioning right now is that basically among like the 16 student candidates like that are going that are about to go through like the first school game like I'm about to like a bunch of like different unique ways in which like a bunch of them among like the 15 student candidates would be like attempting like the French crossing. It's like the scenario that I'm observing, but like yet that unique ways like taking up a lot of like valuable and precious time for like the student candidates towards like the end. It's like the eventual scenario that I'm observing. And among those scenarios, I'm considering like some of them trying to like basically cross like the bridge by standing on the side by like move through while stepping only and move through just like the steel bar alone by placing both their feet onto like the steel bar that are holding up like the glasses like basically while only stepping on like the steel bars and trying to like that way balance their way into like trying to like cross like the bridge. That is like a possibility that I'm considering among like some of like the student candidates attempting that is also like and that way slowly crossing, being able to cross also like a possibility that I'm considering. And then I'm looking at some other student candidates among like the 16 like basically hanging straight away hanging from like the steel bar and basically them like striking at like the glass sheets with their test and basically like destroying like the non-tempered glass and then them like basically hanging on and then moving through like the bridge while hanging on and holding on to like the steel bar and basically like them moving while destroying each non-tempered glass and basically them thoroughly move through like the entirety of like, the bridge while holding on to like the steel bar and moving through the steel bar while hanging on to like the steel bar. It's like the other possible scenario in which like maybe some of them like crossing or like even attempting and failing and falling. It's like also like a possibility that I'm considering. But like still in the case of like Sangyon, definitely by the time like Sangyon, it will be Sangyon's turn, like definitely since I'm considering only about 10 seconds would be left, like I'm considering Sangyon is only running while jumping through the precise tempered glass because like by then like it will be only like the tempered glass alone that will be like remaining. It's like the scenario that I'm considering um while I'm considering like all the other classes would have totally broken. It's like the scenario that I'm considering by then. So like I'm considering Sangyong's task by the time it's its turn would be like exactly uh, able to like quickly run through like the tempered glass without losing balance and falling off from like the bridge. It is definitely my considering direction. So like I'm considering and that's for like the Squid Game candidate who's like going first, like who's wearing like the number one that's like I'm considering like him, like I'm considering his first jump, like even though he's like extremely traumatized and extremely scared, like I'm considering like definitely his first jump would be like luck would be totally favoring him in his like very first jump. It's like the scenario that I'm considering. His first jump would be luckily him end up with like him luckily landing on like the very first tempered glasses, like the scenario that I'm considering. But like I'm considering it would be precisely this like second jump that I'm like him to totally be jumping on to the non-tempered glass and then totally falling off like the first like the scenario that I'm looking for like so Squid Game candidate that would be going for. That's the name of the finish.